And this is a cooperative game where players are working together to try and complete a scenario. And then once you're able to fulfill the objectives of the scenario, players are going to go up against a final boss. And this is a very technologically heavy game because you're going to be using an app, but you're also going to be using some digital components. I'm normally not a huge fan of tech in my board games, but I think this one is done really well and it brings some new ideas to the gaming space that I don't think would have been possible otherwise. And because of that, and because I think that this looks like a really well designed and fun game, this one is going to be my pick of the week. But the way that this game plays is that the main board is divided into 4 different kingdoms, and players are going to be starting with some starting resources, but they're also going to be choosing an asymmetric character. And then whatever side of the board you're sitting on, that kingdom is going to belong to you and your character. Players are going to be starting out with a starter ability as well as some special abilities specific to your character that you'll be unlocking throughout the game. And then you'll also gain an ability depending on which location that you control. So there's a lot of variability there and the game will feel very different from game to game, especially when you consider the different scenarios and the different bosses, which all add more variability on top of it. And the game plays over a series of rounds, with each round representing a month of time passing in the game. And each round will also come with 2 quests that you can try to complete before that round ends. And this will grant you some sort of benefit if you're able to reach the requirements of that quest, or it could also just prevent something bad from happening. But the actual length of a round can vary from round to round because players are just going to be taking actions one at a time until the app tells them to stop. And I really love the way that the actions work in this game because it gives you a lot of options to choose from, but then a lot of these actions are going to be grouped together in multiple groups, and then you'll only be able to choose one of the actions from each of those groups. But basically there's going to be a start of your turn, a middle of your turn, and the end of your turn. And the start of your turn is just a free action that's going to be unique to each character, and you can do this or you can choose not to. But the middle of your turn is where the majority of the actions take place because you have 3 different groups of actions here and you can do them in any order, but these bottom 2 you can only choose one of the actions from. You'll be able to move around on the board and visit the different spaces, and then using the cleanse action allows you to remove skulls from the board and add them back to the shared pool, which I'll get back to in a minute. Battling allows you to attack enemies currently in your space, and when you do attack an enemy, you're going to be pulling them up in the app, and there's going to be a few different battle cards that you're going to be trying to resolve in order to defeat that enemy. You don't have to completely resolve it, but with each requirement that you're able to complete, you're going to be reducing the negative effects of that card more and more, and possibly even making them positive effects. And if you don't have exactly what you need in order to meet those requirements, there are a few other options because you will find different items and gear throughout the game. And these items can have different tags on them, and if they match the tags that are on the enemy that you're currently trying to battle, then you can spend that item to also help complete those requirements. Or players can use their action to visit a dungeon, and you're also going to be pulling them up in the app. And as you explore the dungeon, you're going to be revealing more and more rooms, with each room having some sort of requirement for you to complete in order to move on to the next rooms. And inside each dungeon, there's going to be 1 target room that when you do complete that room, you complete that dungeon. And this could grant you some really nice items or companions to help you along the way, or it could even be required in order to complete the scenario. Or if players are able to move to one of the buildings out on the board, they can use an action to interact with that building, and each building will grant you a special action or some sort of resource, and you can also spend resources to use its special action. And this is going to be a more powerful additional action that you'll get from that building, which can be used to do things like unlock more ability cards, remove damage that you took from enemies, gain more warriors, or gain more gear. And the end of a player's turn is always really interesting because this is when you get to take one of the skulls from the shared pool and then drop it into the top of the tower. And many things could happen when you do this. The tower could send the skull through it onto one of the areas of the board, or the tower could also store the skull, storing many skulls potentially, and then releasing them all at once later in the game. But also the tower could light up and rotate and do completely different things, and sections of the tower will be removed throughout the game, allowing for more locations for skulls to roll out of, or more secrets to be revealed. And this brings me back to why you want to be collecting those skulls and putting them back into your pool, because at the end of your turn, if you don't have any skulls to put into the tower, then all players lose the game. Depending on the scenario you're playing and the in-game randomness, different events could also occur at this time, but it doesn't always happen that way. And then the game continues like this until players are able to complete their objective, and then they go up against that final boss. And fighting a final boss works exactly the same as fighting any other enemy in this game, except for the boss is going to be much stronger, and you do have the option to retreat. So the way that this will likely work out is that on a player's turn, they might want to try and attack the final boss, do as much damage as they're comfortable with, and then retreat, allowing the next person to go in and continue the battle, because the app will always remember what was done and the current state of the battle and the current damage that you did do to the boss. And if players are able to defeat the boss, then they win that scenario. And this campaign will be offering all the previous expansions and accessories that were offered in the previous campaign. But this is also going to be adding the Covenant expansion, which is just going to be adding more to the game. There's going to be new characters, new accessories and items, as well as new scenarios for players to play. And if you're interested in this one, you can go ahead and sign up on the Backer Kit page linked down below.